Yo, what's good, everybody, and welcome back to another fun, fantastic, insightful segment of interviews with Dr. Rachel Monarrez. And hey, bestie, I love her. Sharice is back. Welcome back. Sharice is back.
I'm so
Welcome
excited.
back.
I'm so excited
happy
to be
have you.
here. And this conversation has been very insightful. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, thank you for being here
Of
because,
course,
you
of
know,
course.
you bring the insight from a perspective of a parent,
Right.
all the way up to the perspective of the superintendent of Worcester Public Schools. Have we even said that yet this show? I don't think we have.
I don't know.
I've just been, you know,
Surprise. She's a
telling you how much I
superintendent.
love you. Forgot to mention your title. Superintendent of Worcester Public Schools, everybody. Dr. Rachel Monarrez, thank you so much for being here. So how has it been so far for you? So far, so good? You having
So
fun
far,
with
so
us?
good.
Yeah.
Yes. Manny, I love your intro each time you do it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
every
it's
time.
always different. It's like a thumbprint. We all got a different print. We just, never the same.
Oh,
It's fun though,
man.
but it does have a similar vibe. It's
Yeah.
great every
a little
single
bit
time.
of a punch. We want to make sure
Yeah.
people are awake and they're watching us because, you know, these are the type of conversations that could put people to sleep. Let's be real. It's all in how you present
This
it,
is
right?
true. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we want to make sure it's important. I feel like our children are so lucky and blessed in this country to have education as a requirement because it's so important that we as a race are educated. What I do think, however, is that maybe we going about it, you know, a little old-fashioned. We need to kind of catch up with the times and make it more for each individual rather than as a whole, because we don't all learn the same. We don't all react to certain situations and environments the same, you know, but I know that you're working your hardest to do your best to make sure that our teachers and our educators, thank you so much, are doing your best. We appreciate you. So yeah, this conversation is so important, and we're so happy to have you here. So thank you.
And I
Thank you
think
for
it's
the
important too that, you know, parents do tune into conversations like this because, one, you know, just like you said, it's important that students get the education that they need. And two, that parents are heavily involved in their child's education because your student seeing them there matters.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
like
Yeah.
when a student has a parent behind them advocating for them all of the time, it
Or holding
matters.
them accountable. Even.
Holding them absolutely, you know, it really just makes a difference in a child's education when you are there and when you are
and
present.
the development.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
You know, because let's be real, we got a lot of these children who are very entitled.
Right.
You know, and then that comes from their parents. I'm one strict believer. Nobody can change my mind. Education starts at home.
Yes.
And a lot of our growth into who we are. Yes, there is scientific things, you know, in our DNA and all that stuff that might have an impact on who we become. But ultimately, our children are a carbon copy of us. You know, they're
A lot of
just
their
emulating
behaviors
behaviors
Right.
that they've learned from us. So if they don't know how to act, chances are you don't know how to act. So let's get it together, people.
Well, not only that too, you know, kids pick up on things that their parents say, you know, because that's what they hear. But speaking about parents specifically, I know that you must get a lot of backlash on social media, and you know, from someone who's coming into this position, very brand new, it must be hard to deal with the backlash that comes with, you know, a lot of the comments that people say, a lot of the things that people do.
The world needs a villain.
Right. You know, sitting here with Dr. Monarrez, I do not see her as a villain at all.
Ever.
No, I absolutely see her as a partner
A
in
hero.
everything
I
that we
see
have
you
to
as a
do,
hero,
right?
So thank you.
And before COVID, a lot of parents were not really involved in their child's education. And as a teacher, I know that, you know, culturally, a lot of parents are like, you are the teacher. You need to teach my child. They're with you the majority of the time. You need to make sure that all of these things are getting done. There were some things that were on social media, and I'm sure that everyone's seen it, you know, especially around, you know, the sexual education. There was a new curriculum that was being brought to schools by Massachusetts, and parents went absolutely wild. You know, they put out that curriculum, what would be taught in schools. And I know when I saw it, my son was not a part of Worcester Public Schools yet. So I was like, ooh, that's hard. That's hard as a parent to, you know, see this and say, okay, your child is going to be taught X, Y, and Z. And And as we highlighted already, not every learner is the same. And there's a lot of people that think that maybe mentally, a lot of students can't handle that. A lot of students shouldn't be taught that. In the retrospect, a lot of people are like, maybe they do need to be taught these things, at an early age so that they are educated. What are your feelings behind this curriculum that wanted to be pushed onto students?
So there's this fine balance, right, between what the state requires schools to teach, which are the standards, and then the materials we bring in to then make that happen, right? So as a public school official, I'm required to implement what the state has put into play.
Right.
And so I do my best to keep my personal thoughts out of it, but instead have this kind of guiding principles of how I go about working with my team and parents, and parents are part of the team, right? So, but working with everybody to make sure that we're making the best decisions in the implementation of it. So. Before I came to Worcester, but after I was named the next superintendent, I started looking into more of this curriculum because I saw that it was a big deal. Right. And so when I arrived, it was July, and I said, so what kind of information did we give our families? Because some of my guiding principles are that people without information, they're going to seek to make sense of something. And so information could get twisted and turned, and it could be inaccurate, right? So you have to provide people with enough information so that they can make the right decision for their family, for their children. And so that was my first question is did our families actually get to sit down and look at the materials, or did they have to learn about this curriculum from somebody else? And when you learn it from somebody else, then they will, because this is what we do as humans, give your lens on it, right? And the team told me, we didn't do a very good job of that. I said, all right, so that's our first step, is we have to make sure that families have access to this information. Right. And then really, as long as a parent has the information to make an informed decision, then they have the choice to say, this is appropriate for my child or this is not at this time.
Right.
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like, first of all, communication is key. And we should definitely not be surprising people or scare jumping people with what is going to be in the curriculum. However, there is a very strong element, and I know because I'm one of them people, of parents that just aren't ready to let their babies go.
Mm-hmm. Right.
My son is 15. Well, he'll be 15 in June. He's still my baby. I don't care if he's 50. Right. That will be my baby.
Right.
Because I remember my baby. And I don't want nobody talking to my kid about sex. However, I'm also there in the forefront to make sure that I educate him about the possibilities and dangers or whatever it is that comes along with making such a grown-up decision, because sex is a very grown-up activity that has very, very grown-up consequences. Yes. Whether it's the pregnancy or we'll not even talk about everything else, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Right.
My thing is, kids, especially in public schools, they're gonna talk to each other. They're gonna learn from their peers.
Yes. They are.
And I feel like with drugs, sex, anything like that, it should always start at home. And so if parents are given the information about the curriculum, and maybe there should be even be like a week or two course with the parents so that they get a full understanding of what it is you're teaching their student. You're not showing them pornography. You're teaching them serious life lessons. And then the parents can be involved in that course. They know what kind of homework is going to go home. They can expect what kind of materials are going to be presented to their kids. And then after that class each day, when your kid comes home and you say, hey, what happened in school today? And they say nothing, because all kids say nothing. I didn't learn nothing today.
I don't remember.
They can say, well, actually, you were supposed to learn this, and I'd like to talk to you about it as your parent. I want to make sure you understand. You know what I mean? I think that one of the biggest things that we're missing in our education system is parent involvement. It shouldn't be
100%.
an option. I think parent involvement should be a requirement. We should know where our parents are and able to help their students.
So yes, and I would say that we need to have a common understanding and perspective of what parent involvement looks like and sounds like.
No, and I get that too.
Because
some
that
people
scares
can
parents.
be over-involved.
100%.
Well-
And you have to think about the parents that are working so many jobs,
Yes.
trying to put food on the table, do not
Yes.
have time to, I'm not saying be a part of their child's education, but it's just that extra time, like, now I have to go to this meeting. Now I have to do this.
Well,
Now I have to do that.
yeah.
You shouldn't have had kids.
well, okay, but
Just
yes,
saying.
and so
I mean, let's be real.
and I'm not talking about the parents who are overly involved. That's one group, and really it's about harnessing that energy because they
Right.
just want to help,
Right.
right? They just want to help. I'm talking about these beliefs that we have, and you kind of talked about it a little bit. There are cultural what's the word I'm looking for? It's cultural. There's some things, right? So sometimes I think in education we talk about parent involvement, and unintentionally everybody's mind goes to a very middle class belief of parent involvement.
Right. I agree with that 100%.
I was a single mom for a very long time with my daughter, and so I was teaching. Yeah. I was taking care of the home. I was involved with my
PTO.
daughter.
Right.
But I was not at the school during the school day. I could not be there, right?
It's a lot of work.
And I resented when they would make me go to a parent meeting that night just to check off a box that I was there. Just because you're there doesn't mean you're engaged and you're involved, right? So having something where we have I think these varying perspectives and understanding around what does it mean to be involved in your child's education. Absolutely. As a parent, it always came back to me. If my daughter wasn't doing well, and I remember going to, I had a flashback when you were speaking when she was in high school and she was trying to pull a fast one. And I went and yes, and I went and I sat down with her and her English teacher, and the teacher said, "Well, she hasn't been doing this," and I just looked at her, and that's all it took. And that teacher never had to talk to me again. And my daughter knew, I can't do that. Mom's not going to. That one's not going to work, right? So all of that just to say, it's really important that we have, the people that we're talking about, that they're part of it, and that we are respectful and see them as. And so I'm talking about my families, my caregivers. We treat them with dignity and respect, and that engagement or involvement looks different, and none of it is wrong. All of it is part of the bigger picture. Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I feel like the bigger picture is our kids, and we should be doing whatever we can to make sure that they have the most fruitful, successful, and happy life possible. And their education is a requirement. We should, as parents, take it seriously and make the time. We have make time. We can live though. We're able to make time to complain and say what we don't want, but there's not enough people making time to bring solutions to the table of how exactly their kids can get this required education. Because let's be real, particularly with sex ed,
they're learning it somewhere.
Matters.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd much rather my
Social
son
media
learn in a classroom, and I know like there are religious reasons and other reasons. So then maybe you can say, if you're religious, I choose for my child to learn about that at my congregation.
There you
go.
And that was my next question. What are the choices that parents do? Parents have a choice in what their child is learning? Can they opt out of something? And I can imagine sitting there in front of a class, and someone comes in, a complete stranger, is teaching your child about things that maybe are going to make them very uncomfortable. And then
uncomfortability is the key to success. Comfortability.
I completely agree.
Complacency, and
that's the thing. A couple of kids get picked out of that class. Like, hey, you're not going to be here for this class. You think they're not going to sit around the lunch table and be like, guess what we learned today?
Right.
Yes.
No, and in class, like I remember when I had sex ed, we would laugh and we thought it was funny.
Right.
But
We
I
learned.
also learned I don't want my parts to be all bumpy and stuff. Like, I'm just saying. I learned that. You know what I mean? So I was
agree.
safe. And
Right.
I'm just saying.
I absolutely agree. There are conversations that are
That's what it is.
uncomfortable, but uncomfortable conversations need to be had sometimes. But, you know.
Yes, they do need to. However, it's still the parent's choice on who's going to be the one to do that. Now, they're going to talk about it at lunch. They're going to talk about it on the bus.
Right.
Yeah. And then
Right.
it's like they'll hear this one thing and then they'll hear something else that maybe we didn't teach. They start talking about it on the bus. And then the parents unfortunately assume that it came out of this.
It's that beautiful game of telephone.
Oof. Yeah. It's fun
tough.
stuff.
It's tough, you know.
That's public education.
100% public education.
Well, all I know is time flies when you're having fun.
Are we done already?
Almost done. We're near
Wow.
the end.
Yeah.
Now is the time where we must unfortunately say, I'm not
Say
saying
goodbye.
goodbye to you.
I
I'll say
know.
see you next show.
Absolutely.
See you next time?
I would love to be here. And honestly, if
I
Dr.
missed
Monarrez
you
wanted
so
to come back
much.
in, I would love to sit down with you and have even more conversations about how important this is. Because I know as a parent, I'm definitely going to be making sure that parents tune into a segment like this to be like, if you want to know more about our superintendent, stop complaining on social media and get to know her a little bit better, because this conversation was more than insightful. And thank you so much for having me here.
I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much
It's
for
wonderful
speaking
to
with me,
meet
especially
you.
as a parent. And I really enjoyed my time.
Absolutely. And sorry, almost. One more thing. What do you mean no? You're messing me up. I know. We got to say goodbye. That's what I know. All right. John, my amazing producer, thank you so much. I appreciate your hard work back there. Dr. Monarrez, thank you so much for being here. I hope to have you come back again. Maybe at the end of the year, we could do end of the year.
Oh, that would be great.
I would love
review
that.
on how your first year
I
went.
would love that.
And, maybe we could do this steadily moving forward. But we got to go because you got to go. You're a very busy woman. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you. Dr. Rachel Monarrez, everybody. And my beautiful co-host, Cherise. I'm your boy, Manny. This has been Interviews. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. Yeah, that was good. That was fun.